What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, who's Tad the Side. And Tad, we're going to get into something that we've done the past couple of seasons. Actually, I think we've done it every single iteration of the off season that we have had this podcast. I'm pretty sure.
This is at the same time one of my favorite things we do and one of my least favorite things we do. It's like, it's a great idea in theory. And then all the work that goes into it, I'm like, I hate this. I hate this so much. But today's episode's actually made it much, much easier because I had a lot to go on in the past NFL. So I'm actually, you know what? The first episode, not too bad. But yes, we are kicking off our annual NFL head coaching deep dive. And Amir, do you want to introduce who we're going to start with?
Absolutely. And Ted, I think this year, we've learned from our past episodes and our
We
past,
always say that. We always say that. Just
I feel like this year was a little bit more pared down, so I think it might be a little
no.
bit easier. No,
No, we
Okay,
need to
all
stop
right.
lying to ourselves. We're never going to pare this down.
I think this year is going to be a lot different.
Yeah,
compared
I
to the
hope so.
previous
We'll
years.
see.
But
Okay, anyway.
yes, like Tad said, we're starting our new NFL head coaching series. We always cover all of the new head coaching hires, and eventually, we'll figure out whether we're going to cover the rest of the teams. We did it last year. That was pretty labor intensive.
That was bad.
So
That was
we'll
bad.
see
We
about
are
that.
never
We're gonna
doing
make
that again. No,
we're gonna
we're
make
never
some
doing that again.
adjustments. I'm not sure if we're gonna do articles for every team like we did last year. We'll figure something out. But like I said, we're gonna start with our new head coaching series, and we're going to kick off that series with the new head coach of the Denver Broncos, and that is Sean Payton,
There we
former
go.
NFL head coach. So Tad, like you said, I think there's a lot that we got to go off of and figure out as far as what he's going to bring to the Denver Broncos from what he was doing back there in New Orleans during the late 2000s to the mid to end of the 2010s, 2020, I think 21 is what he retired. Right?
What are we going to call it? 2010s? 20 teens? Have we decided on the name for that decade yet?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But he
feel like
spanned across
2010s
15 seasons. So just say that what you want there. So let's get to his coaching history a little bit
All
here,
right,
Tad.
let's do
So
it.
really quickly, let's start with his professional playing history first. So very short. He got into coaching very early because he did not have that great of a playing career. He unfortunately went undrafted in the 1987 NFL draft. He landed in get this, Tad, the inaugural season of the Arena Football League, which obviously we know from Kurt Warner and a few other guys that have made their names in the Arena Football Leagues, then coming over to the NFL. So he was in the inaugural season. He played for a little bit, but then surprisingly, Tad, he was sold for $1,000
I saw
to
that.
the Canadian Football League for the Ottawa Rough Riders of the Canadian Football League. So he played there. He ended up being a replacement player during the 1987 NFL strike. He was part of the Chicago Bears organization. I love this nickname, Tad. I called them the Spare Bears. I was like, this is fantastic.
That's fantastic.
This is
So
fantastic.
good.
I loved it. That's why I had to bring it up there. Eventually, he went to Europe and he played in. I never even heard of this league. I was like, I had to bring this up because
You never heard of the Europe League?
No, not the Europe League. The league that Sean Payton played. I heard of NFL Europe. I definitely heard of that.
Come on, Jake
But I don't
Delhomme,
think you've
Kurt
heard of this
Warner.
league.
Come on, man.
This is the league, though, Tad. The UK Budweiser National League.
I love it. It's like the G League. It's like a 90s version of the G League.
A little bit. So he played for the Leicester Panthers, and he actually did pretty well. He took them to the playoffs.
Props to you on pronunciation, by the way.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a big soccer fan, and so he likes to watch English Premier League. So I know Leicester City is one of those teams, so that's why I already knew that.
I said Leicester once. You would have thought my soccer friend would have killed me.
Yeah, exactly. So Leicester Panthers, he took them to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they lost in the quarterfinals. Came back to the United States, and he realized that, you know what, I need to jump into coaching. So he landed in the college ranks. Started at San Diego State, Tad. He coached Marshall Faulk when he was there for a
Damn
little
it!
bit. Sorry.
Damn it! You
I didn't
stole
know.
my
I
fun
thought
fact.
you had that
You
one.
stole
But
my
yes,
fun fact. Damn
I'm
it!
sorry.
All right,
I'm
yes,
real sorry.
he coached Marshall Faulk. I was even gonna make the whole Warner connection of like, oh hey, you mentioned Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk, but
Yeah.
yes, no, he did coach Marshall Faulk while he was at San Diego State. By the way, how many LAFB members do you think would know that Marshall Faulk went to San Diego State?
I think there's a good handful of them. I don't know about
I think
everybody,
I
but
think a
so.
handful, but I would say like 50%, which is lower than it should be.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's
No,
fair.
it's almost like if they don't play in LA, they don't care about them.
Wow. All right, let's toss that into the Slack a little bit later, and you can handle that explosion at the landmine.
Oh man.
But yeah, so he jumped around in the college ranks. He coached at Indiana State. He coached at Miami of Ohio. He was the offensive coordinator there. Went back to the University of Illinois, and then he came back again to San Diego State. Fun fact, Tad, when he was the OC in Miami of Ohio in 1995, they had the top scoring offense in the FBS.
Wow.
So, I mean, he started to display that skills that he had. Unfortunately, not as a player, but definitely as a coach, he started to display that there. 2 years later, 1997, got his first NFL coaching gig. That was with the Philadelphia Eagles under head coach Ray Rhodes and offensive coordinator. How about this name? John Gruden was his offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. So, yeah. So he got to learn from him. Unfortunately, Ray Rhodes was fired in a couple seasons. New head coach Andy Reid that stepped in decided not to retain Sean Payton. He moved on. He landed with the New York Giants. He was the offensive coordinator for that team in 2000 that played in the Super Bowl against a lot of people arguably saying the best defense to ever play in the NFL, that 2000 Baltimore Ravens.
I'll say I may agree with that. But no, the funny thing was the play calling duties were actually pulled from him while he was while he was with the Giants, is because they started struggling a bit. So it was actually pulled from him, but he still succeeded, which is really, really weird. And this is, I'm jumping ahead here, but this is why he made his next move, which was
to these division rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, maybe some of that play calling, I think, affected him because he did get fired. He did get signed on by the Dallas Cowboys. He helped coach up Vinny Testaverde in Dallas.
That's another fun fact. I literally had no idea until, I had to jump on this because
of course you have to.
Literally, I had no idea Vinny Testaverde was ever a Cowboy before I did research for this episode. I was like, Vinny Testaverde was a Cowboy? And I was like, no, there's no way. And I looked it up, and I don't know how. That is a massive gap of knowledge in my football, history of I had no idea he was a Cowboy. And so, no, Sean Payton helped Testaverde and two other Cowboys to 3 straight 3,000 plus yards passing seasons. But no, I'm not lying. That was one of the more mind-blowing things I found during my research was like, Vinny Testaverde was a Cowboy, really. Do you remember that? I was like 6 years
Vinny
old.
Vinny Testaverde was very much like the Ryan Fitzpatrick of now, and a little bit of the Josh Johnson,
just kind of like bounce around.
Played for every team.
Josh Johnson's a great one.
Yeah, so Vinny Testaverde was one of those guys as well. So yeah, he helped coach up, like you said, 3 quarterbacks. One of them was Testaverde. One of them was Drew Bledsoe. He played for the Dallas Cowboys.
That one I did know. And
the other one was Quincy Wilson. So they all had 3,000 yard seasons. Yeah. But also, Tad, he was instrumental in discovering Tony Romo with the Dallas Cowboys.
Out of what college?
Eastern Illinois, because the same as Jimmy Garoppolo. So they talked about that one a lot when they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. The San Francisco 49ers traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. I was like, I did that. But yeah, so because of all of that and doing it in Dallas, obviously the biggest market, the biggest team, obviously a lot of attention goes to that in the NFL. He was a hot commodity. He was getting a lot of coaching attention to get a head coaching job. Eventually, he does get his head coaching job with the New Orleans Saints in 2009. This is crazy, Tad. So they had a 3-13 record. 3-13 record the year before he was hired. Took them to a 10-6 record his very first season, NFC South title, and he was in the NFC Championship game against the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, it was a very lopsided game. Chicago Bears ended up going to the Super Bowl there, but still, in your first season,
whoa. Hold on. Chicago Bears went to the Super Bowl. How did that Super Bowl play out?
Well, I think Tad's pretty happy about that one. You can talk about that one if you want to.
Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl. That's how it played out, baby.
That is exactly what happened there. So later on, though, Tad, a couple years later, He was able to compile a
I
13-3
shouldn't have done that.
record in
I shouldn't have done that. I'm
2009.
about to
You laid it out, but I
gotta,
gotta supplement that one there. So just a couple seasons later, in 2009, Payton led the Saints to a 13-3 record, gets to the Super Bowl finally, and who does he beat to accomplish this to get the New Orleans Saints their first ever Super Bowl win in franchise history? Unfortunately, Tad, it came against your Indianapolis Colts.
Fuck you, Tracy Porter.
But yeah, he ended up coaching 15 seasons with the New Orleans Saints. He had 10 winning seasons out of those 15 seasons, Tad. Obviously, we could talk about Bountygate. He got suspended for an entire year, took a year off. He came back. He was still his old self. But eventually, he did retire in 2021. He was thinking about, he went to the broadcast booth for a little bit. Yeah, went to the broadcast booth for a year. And obviously, the head coaching calls started to come in. He was getting a lot of interest from a lot of teams out there. Eventually, he has accepted the role with the Denver Broncos. So really, Tad, before we get into his coaching philosophy, his coaching team, which I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners and our viewers know about already, but we'll get into it a little bit here again, just in case we're catching anybody that has no idea who Sean Payton is, because there may be some people who are tuning into our episode that maybe not. But just what did you think about Sean Payton landing with Denver as soon as you heard the news that he was landing there?
You know, it made sense because with Russell Wilson, the way his contract works. So I was going to bring this up later, but let me break this down right now. Sure. Is the soonest like realistic cut point in terms of like when the Broncos could cut Russell Wilson off their roster is 2026. And even if they do that, honest to God, I was like, God, this feels so familiar. I feel like I've had this conversation before. And I remembered it wasn't Russell Wilson I was having this conversation about. It was Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M of like, they're both just horrifically bad long contracts. So 2026 is the soonest the Broncos can realistically cut Russell Wilson. That's at $31 million. That's their dead cap hit in 2026.
Oh, Lord, that's a big one.
So, like, maybe you take that, maybe you don't. I don't know. And then the most realistic time that they're going to get rid of him is in 2028, where it drops down to 4. So that's the most realistic thing. But either way, my entire point stands is they're basically stuck with Russell Wilson for the next 2 or 3 years. So you got to do something drastic to make it work, especially after the absolute train wreck that the Broncos were last year. And so, especially because I was watching tape of Russell Wilson, in preparation for this episode, and he was just making really poor decisions. It was one play in particular where, I'm trying Alberto, how you say it?
Okwuegbunam,
yeah, I'm not trying that. Alberto is running OTB over the ball route, and Bobby Wagner is very clearly just like sitting there, and Russell Wilson's like, I'm gonna try it. And this is it's like an old, I brought this up during our draft live stream, but it's like an old meme I saw of all of the Star Trek movies summed up, where it's like, Spock being like, don't do the thing, and Kirk's like, I'm doing the thing. Of course, that's what Russell Wilson was doing all last season. He's just doing the thing for no reason. He had no ability to read the defense. So hopefully he has the ability to read this. But going back to your original question, is all this to say you're stuck with this quarterback that's a giant question mark at this point, and I can't think of a better coach to pair him with. So so for those of you who don't know, the Broncos gave up this year's first round pick, which ended up being Brian Brees, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, and a second round pick next year for Sean Payton. It's a C price, but I think that, like, if you're going to go all in on this quarterback, which you've clearly already done, this is your best bet to make it work. And I do think there's a good chance it may work.
No, I have optimism that Sean Payton's going to work out, because obviously he has a strong track record of being able to get the best out of that New Orleans Saints offense. And I mean, we're going to get into it.
We'll get into that.
Definitely. It's just like he has the track record there. He was able to take a year off, sort of just get his mind right. Just look at, obviously, too, like, this is very much like what they were talking about with John Gruden. He was like, take some time off. He was in Monday Night Football, watching a lot of broadcasts, watching these teams, understanding that,
send those emails, man.
Yeah, it ended up not working out for him in that sense. But just like, I think Sean Payton obviously was able to do the same thing there with Fox. So, I mean, just hopefully hopefully, he's going to be able to continue his strong track record being an NFL head coach now with the new team there. So let's get into his coaching style, Tad, because yes, we have a little bit of, well, not a little bit, but we have a lot.
Oh no, we have a lot.
We have a lot of things that we could take from his time there in New Orleans. And Tad, I think just the first thing that you have to speak about with Sean Payton and his offenses there in New Orleans, they put up points on the board with ease. Like, I mean, Tad, in 15 seasons, his offenses have finished in the top 10 in scoring 13 times. So there's only 2 seasons where his offense did not finish in the top 10 in scoring, and then 10 of those 13 seasons in the top 5. And yes, I know he had Drew Brees at his quarterback. Yes, I know he had Michael Thomas towards the end of that team. He had Marcus Colston. He had a lot of these great players, but still, it's just his utilization and his way that he was able to scheme up a lot of these players to get open and just to leverage just so many mismatches. That's what made his offense so dangerous.
I have a lot of notes on that, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot to get into here. So, Tad, I think the biggest thing also that hopefully Payton will be able to accomplish here in Denver, because he was able to accomplish it in New Orleans, is that he was able to make sure the quarterback was protected. Yep. Drew Brees was very rarely sacked during his time in New Orleans. I got more stats for you here. 10 times the New Orleans Saints finished in the top 5 with the fewest sacks allowed. Top 5. And then 13 times total finishing in the top 10 for fewest sacks allowed. So critically, I mean, he put emphasis that's like, I don't want my quarterback getting hit because I want my quarterback to be able to dissect the offense with however much time he needs to make sure that he is executing the play that I am calling out for him. And that's exactly what Drew Brees did. He set so many records, single season, career records. I mean, just everything he was able to accomplish there because he was getting the protection. I mean, it's like you can't do that if you don't have the protection. He's able to just look around, find the right option, and be able to deliver and execute the plays that Sean Payton's obviously drawing up for him, right? So his offense is built off, like, I mean, we've talked about this so many times before on our coaching series. It's built off the West Coast. A lot of these offenses are sort of like they have their base of the West Coast.
Good Lord. You West Coast people and your just influence. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly.
Your housing prices are getting down here now too. I can't move.
But yeah, obviously, like I said, he was coaching in Philadelphia. That's where he started his coaching career. John Gruden, obviously, bringing up the West Coast offense from his time with San Francisco for a little bit too. I remember we talked about that in our last coaching series. So it's obviously made the transition to all these other coaches. They have an influence there. But obviously, he takes it and he adds his own special mix to it as well. So one of the biggest things that New Orleans was doing, Tad, not only was he doing the West Coast, but then he was doing the West Coast to lull the defense to sleep. And then all of a sudden you get these aggressive shots down the field. And I think maybe, Tad, this is a good point where you can sort of step in here and speak a little bit more about just like how explosive this offense was during that time.
No, that's why for our podcast listeners who are audio only, the second Amir said that, I got excited because, like I said, I started watching Saints tape because I'm not a Saints fan. What the hell do I care? So I started watching this offense to prep for this episode, and that was one thing that actually shocked me. Was because I always thought of Sean Payton's offenses as one that stretches the field and we're gonna take deep shots time and time again, but actually what they do is they attack you horizontally. So what I mean by that is if you're the quarterback in this offense, you need to have a rocket arm to get it to the sideline, not to get it to the end zone. And they attack you, short, until the defense is finally like, okay, we're going to bring everybody in. No more short passes. And then you hit them with a deep pass. And it's just, and like you said, that is where Sean Payton found his success so well in New Orleans, is because he found the right combination of weapons to make that work. And we'll definitely get into this later. But that is the thing that surprised me, was just how classic West Coast Sean Payton goes about this. This is just like short gain, and 40-yard touchdown. It's just like, that's the way it works. So that is the genius of Sean Payton, is what he's going to do, but he gives you no other option. It's because either okay, we'll go into the 10, just drive you down the field, or we'll score, on the long drive. And there's just no way to stop him. And I knew Sean Payton was a great coach before this, but truly breaking down this head coach deep dive, I was like, this dude, he's a great offensive mind. And that is a big reason why I'll be fascinated to see how Russell Wilson does in the system, because a lot of Sean Payton's offense depends on a quarterback that kind of needs to make his decision before the snap comes of like, all right, here's what the defense is giving me. I either need to go short or I need to go long. And with a rookie or an experienced quarterback, that's iffy. But Russell Wilson, say what you will, he knows what he's doing most of the time. So I think that's why I'm cautiously optimistic on the Broncos heading into this year, because I think if you pair Sean Payton with a veteran quarterback that already knows what he's doing, that's already used to the speed of the game, it's a dangerous combo. We saw with Drew Brees. This is exactly what happened in New Orleans. He went from, San Diego, him being Drew Brees, before anyone says I'm wrong. Drew Brees went from San Diego to New Orleans, and he went in the system where it's like, you need to know what you're doing, and he flourished in that.
Exactly. And, I think, a lot of people like to talk about Russell Wilson having this mobility. So he still has it, but he's not the same mobile guy that he used to be.
He's not a scrambler, but he can move around in that pocket.
Exactly. So I think that's the benefit that I think Sean Payton's going to be able to benefit from as well, too, where it's like Drew Brees was not a mobile quarterback. But like you said,
I think that's where Drew Brees fell apart late in his career, because people forget like his last couple games were not that good. But I think that's where he fell apart, was because it was like, hey, can you move 3 steps? It's like, no, I can't. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But one thing that Drew Brees was also very good at, yes, he got the protection, but he also had good pocket awareness. And that's what Russell Wilson benefits from too, where he used to be able to just scramble out of the pocket, make a 50-yard throw on the run. Now it's like those things are going to come few and far between. I think that's the thing there. But I think still Russell Wilson has that pocket awareness. He can scramble a little bit more, even at this age, more than Drew Brees. So I think that's going to give a little bit more of an extra wrinkle in this offense for Sean Payton. And I want to touch on something that you brought up, Tad, where it's like this offense, like you said, not only are they going to attack you vertically, but exactly like I said, they attack you horizontally. So they're going left to right.
Sidelines.
And they very much epitomize the fact that they are going to beat you with every inch of the field, and also with player mismatches. So, I mean, it's like we obviously know about Jimmy Graham, how he just came out of nowhere using tight ends to stretch the field. They had Darren Sproles on their roster. They have Reggie Bush on their roster.
Holy shit. I legitimately forgot Darren Sproles was a Saint up until now.
Exactly. And so it's like he's able to use these players in just different ways that maybe not every team is going to use. So he's going to take the running back and use him on a wheel route, maybe on first down. You're going to use the tight end. You're going to bring him in on a short route, but then you're also going to send him deep on a deep 9 route because you have the ability with Jimmy Graham. So it's just like you don't know what to expect from every player that is lined up in a formation under Sean Payton, because you're just like, okay, yeah, I think this guy is going to cut short on you, but then all of a sudden he's going to cut on you and totally beat your linebacker up the seam, and he's going to be wide open for probably a 40-yard touchdown that you're just not even expecting. And then I know there's a lot of big names, Tad, that we've talked about. Obviously, like I said, Michael Thomas, Jimmy Graham, Reggie Bush. But Sean Payton's also gotten a lot out of these lesser-known guys, like Marcus Colston. I know he made a name for himself.
I have some stats on him for later.
He was a 7th-round pick. Look, I mean, he was able to get that because he fit the offense so well. Then
Out of where?
Hofstra. I knew that one. Because they always talked about that one.
Damn it.
That one was always talked about on the broadcast. Tad. Like that, you couldn't have given me that one. But remember Lance Moore? He made a name for himself in the same office. Do you remember Devery Henderson?
I do remember that. There's one guy I'm trying to remember, like last year, like 2 years ago, number 10 or number 12.
Yeah, Traquan Smith. He became
there. It is. That's exactly what I was thinking.
You also got Kenny Stills for a brief time. Was very good with the New Orleans Saints. He signed with Miami.
Out of
not
where?
The same player.
Out of what
not
college?
The same player. Oklahoma, I think. If I remember correctly.
Fucking.
I'm sorry.
Am I ever going to win this game?
You've won it before. But the biggest thing with Kenny Stills is that he fit that offense so well, but as soon as he signed to Miami, not the same guy. And I think
remember, because everybody was like, oh, like he's the stretch the field guy, and it was just like everybody thought that was a perfect like match made in heaven. And yeah, he didn't fit the system. That's the whole thing is, and keep in mind, like I know people are gonna go, well, why are you bringing up people a year or two ago? That wasn't Sean Payton's system, that was Sean Payton's system. It still work even though he left. Like the system makes players work. That is the key to a great coach.
Exactly. And then just the last thing that I'll close this out with, Tad, and then I'll pass it to you to sort of give some closing remarks on his coaching style here, is that we're talking so much about the passing game, but when his offense got real dangerous, he was able to run the ball, because you have to remember there's
Yeah.
a lot of great running backs that played in this system that are able to run the ball as well as be pass catchers as well. Like, I can list off a few here, like Deuce McAllister. Even at the twilight of his
Great
career,
throwback.
he was still effective in this offense. Remember Pierre Thomas? He was effective in this
Wow,
offense.
that's a great
it's
throwback.
Another one, right?
Man, I want to play the
Obviously,
college game with that, but I don't even know.
yeah, actually, Pierre Thomas, you would have got me on
I'm
this
on
one.
it.
If
I'm
you
on
knew
it.
it,
I'm on
if
it.
you knew it, you
Damn
would
it.
have got me.
Damn
So
it.
this is
Damn
the
it.
one. You would have got me. But obviously, Tad, we hear about Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. They're a little bit more recent, obviously, but just like they had that 1-2 punch, but just like when he was able to establish a strong running game, that just made the pass offense just that much more effective, that much more dangerous, right? And so it's like, you look at what Denver did in the offseason. They made some key contributions to add to their offensive line. They signed Ben Powers. They signed Mike McGlinchey, who are both excellent in the run game. And also, Ted, they signed a blocking tight end by the name of Chris Manhertz. I don't know if you know about this guy, but he is
Never
one of
heard of
the
him.
better blocking tight ends in the league. So clearly it's like Sean Payton's like, I need to upgrade this team to make sure we could run the ball, because that's going to benefit us when we have pass catchers like Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick's going to come back. Obviously, we got the tight ends where Greg Dulcich looked great, and Albert Okwuegbunam. It's like all these guys that can be more effective if we can establish the run, and we need to make sure that we can block and set some holes for these guys to establish the run to keep the defense honest, and then all of a sudden we can beat them through the air. So yeah, there's a lot to like with Sean Payton coming to Denver. We're obviously going to get into guys that we like as far as the fantasy aspect is concerned. But Dad, I want to pass it to you here to just sort of close out just any other thoughts that you have on just Sean Payton's system in Denver, and just like, I'm very excited for it, honestly. Like, I mean, like,
No,
I know you're cautiously optimistic, but I'm actually maybe a little bit more optimistic, because it's like, yeah, I think it's really going to work out.
I mean, like I said, like it's this is my general point with, did Denver give up too much for Sean Payton? No, because this was the only system where if you have an aging quarterback that knows what he's doing, this is the only system that's going to work in.
And also, Tad, really quick, I didn't want to cut you off here, but just remember, Drew Brees was a quote unquote shorter quarterback. And Sean Payton was able to get the most out of him. What is Russell Wilson? He is also in that same vein.
And more mobile. And more mobile than,
like I said, we already
Drew
talked about
Brees.
the mobility, but just the fact that he's shorter, I think Sean Payton can now work with him and understand that's like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm designing these plays in a way that Russell Wilson can best execute them, because he's a shorter quarterback. So I mean, it's just like,
and people
that's
say
going to
like,
help
oh,
too.
and people say like, oh, the shorter thing, does that really factor in? No, like Drew Brees and Sean Payton have both admitted, like, yeah, no, we ran more plays in shotgun, because that way Drew wouldn't have to be like this, like for our podcast listeners, like the giraffe, like looking over,
raising his head. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
no,
100%.
They execute a lot of plays in shotgun formation. I think the same thing's going to happen in Denver.
Exactly. So, by the way, Pierre Thomas went to Illinois. How about that?
Wow, I never would have guessed.
I
thought he probably went to a smaller school.
I had
no idea about Illinois.
All
right.
But no, all right. The last thing I'll bring up before we get to our players who will benefit is I also did a little bit of research on the defensive coordinator. This shocked me. I was like, I have to be reading this wrong. Vance Joseph is back in Denver.
Yes, I remember hearing about that.
How awkward must that meeting must have been.
And I remember posting in Slack too. I was like, is Denver really going to rehire this guy to be their DC? And I remember the Slack was just like, you know what? He's got a little talent. It's going to be interesting. And there's a lot of jokes that are being made about the welcoming committee going to be very interesting and all this stuff. But yeah, I do. That does recollect to me. Yeah, that Vance Joseph is now the DC there. So
when I watched Vance Joseph's defense, just because we can't give all the love to the offense, we got to throw a little love to the tough guys too.
Sure.
Is he's a very blitz heavy, man-to-man heavy offense as well. So, and I honest to God, I feel like I remember this happening, but I totally forgot about it. Zach Allen is now a Bronco. And Zach Allen had a career.
That's going to be a very underrated signing.
I agree. I completely agree, because he had a career high 5.5 sacks last year. And I think he's going to be a monster for this defense, because they already had the, for those of you who don't know, Vance Joseph was the defensive coordinator for the Cardinals last season. Zach Allen was a defensive end for the Cardinals last season. So they already had the chemistry, same system for both of them. And also, here's the thing where I was really like, ooh, this may be a problem for everybody else in that division. Joseph loves himself some man-to-man. He loves going man-to-man. Remember, who's the top corner in Denver?
Arguably, some could say he's the top corner in the league too. Patrick Surtain the second.
That's going to be dirty. That
Yes.
is going to be like, I think Surtain, Zach Allen, Jewell, like
Josie Jewell's a very underrated
yeah,
linebacker too.
Yeah. There's a lot to Kareem Jackson still there. Like, there's a lot to work with.
Justin Simmons is still on the team, right? He signed a long-term deal, I think, or is he still playing on the tag? One or the other. He's either on the tag or he has a long-term deal. He's on the team.
Yeah, So, like, this Denver defense, don't be surprised they jump back into like the top 5, performing defenses again, because I really, Vance Joseph was never given a fair shot. He just, I've given this rant before, and that's why I was surprised he went back. I mean, he's a better man than me. He clearly holds no ill will. So he is back there and he is in a great position to prove like, hey, my system works. So I know we've been talking about the Denver's offense this entire time, but Denver's defense, whoo, look out for that.
No, honestly, Tad, we brought this up before because I think we've talked about the Carolina Panthers numerous times during the offseason here because of all the moves they've been making. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Ejiro Evero, who is now the defense coordinator in Carolina, but he got the most out of this defense last season. And we've said this so many times. Denver was not bad because of the defense. It was their absolutely horrific offense that made them terrible.
You give us the ball on our own 20. Like, what the fuck do you want from it? Like,
exactly. Yeah, so I very much like the pieces that they have on defense. I think Vance Joseph has a lot to work with there, so they're going to be good on that side of the ball too. But just, I'm very, like I said, I'm too optimistic, but it's just like I can't help but feel like just the system that Sean Payton is bringing there, it's really going to benefit this offense. And let's transition it here, Tad, to the last segment that we have of today's episode is just who's going to benefit fantasy-wise? Because, I mean, obviously, we usually do this head coaching series with that sort of eye towards fantasy football drafts with all these new head coaches, like who's going to benefit, who's going to regress. I don't think we have any regressive candidates this episode, but we definitely do have 2 beneficial players. So I'm going to pass it to you here. Who do you think is a guy that's really going to benefit with this transition to Sean Payton's, stretch the field, West Coast offense, establish the run, just like so many different things. Like I said, the explosive factor with this offense is there, especially with the pieces that they have. I'm just curious to see which piece do you think could be the most effective?
So, like we already touched on, there are 3 types of receivers in the Sean Payton offense. There's the guy that will stretch the field. I think that'll either be KJ Hamler or, and I'm not even going to lie, I totally forgot they drafted this guy. It's either going to be Hamler or Mims.
Yeah.
So one of those guys is going to be the deep shot guy where they're going to blow up, 1 or 2 weeks and we're all going to freak out. Be like, oh, get him off the waiver wire. And I'm telling you, don't do it. Because this happens every time. People are going to have PTSD with the Saints offense where it's like, who do I trust? And the answer is no one. But so they have their deep field stretch guy. Okay. They had their short yardage guy where it's like, all right, you're a big physical dude. We can trust you to get, like we talked about, like the 3 yards a catch, move the ball down the field. That's Courtland Sutton, in my opinion. Who is left? We got Tim Patrick. Nothing against Tim Patrick, but this other guy that I'm about to name in my pick is better. I think Jerry Jeudy is going to absolutely succeed in this role because let's take a look at 2 of the other guys that fulfill this role. You're our in-between. You're going to be our every down guy, but also stretch the field when it's needed. Marquise Colston, over under 2 seasons that he's had, under 500 or under 900 yards.
I remember looking at the stats. I think it's under.
I got you again.
It's exactly 2 seasons. It's exactly 2 seasons. I wanted to say that, but I was like, no, maybe I read it wrong. But
I was scared you were going to catch on to the game. But no, and here's the thing too, though. Those 2 seasons, he started less than 10 games. So those were injury related and everything else. So he is Colston was the definition of consistent in terms of yardage. Now let's talk touchdowns. Brandon Cooks, when he was with New Orleans, scored 8 and 9 touchdowns. He isn't, and this was shocking to me. He has yet to reach those numbers since he has left New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you find the right combo of speed and possession receiver, which I feel like Jerry Jeudy is, you find the perfect combo of yardage monster with a fair amount of touchdowns. I'm not going to be like an unbelievable amount, 8 or 9 solid season. So I think that Jerry Jeudy is going to be the one that really explodes in the system. Courtland Sutton's going to rack up a lot of receptions, a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns. KJ Hamler is going to have a couple games where he really blows up. Other than that, he's fine. But I think Judy's going to be the secret, spice you throw in this pot. and the pot of how about that pot for Denver? Get it?
Oh, God, yeah.
'Cause
I was just
weed's
curious to
legal
see
there.
where you're going with this analogy of this pot
Well,
here.
I was
like,
doing
where are you going to close this out here?
I was doing cooking metaphor and then kind of
Yeah.
blew up on me. But yeah, no, like
Yeah.
you throw the spice in there and like it just blows up like in a good way. And like I really think that Jerry Jeudy is going to be the most effective receiver in this offense. So Jerry Jeudy 100%, honest to God, if I'm late second round, I may consider him.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty high
That's
praise
serious.
for Jerry Jeudy.
I'm seeing like wide receiver 1 potential in him.
I very much like that. I think with the skill set that he brings, I think he's just going to be an ultimate fit in this offense for sure. The only thing that sort of makes me a little bit cautious is just like all the rumors that we heard about them possibly trading Sutton and Jeudy. So it's just like, is it because of that? Is that a Sean Payton thing? Is that a George Payton thing? Is that like, something else? I really don't know. That's the only thing that makes me just a little bit cautious with both Jeudy and Sutton.
Fair.
But honestly, like third round, if he's there, I'm 100% snatching him up for
all
sure.
Right, late second, third. What the hell's the
No,
difference?
I know, but I just a little bit there. But I'm gonna give you a name here that a lot of people picked last year to break out. But I think now with the switch in this offense and Sean Payton sort of bringing this extra wrinkle here, I think he's finally going to break out this year. And that's a guy that we brought up already a little bit here, Tad, the name that you don't want to say, but I will say it for you to cover your grounds here. Albert Okwuegbunam, Albert O.
All right. Whoa. Give me a try.
Okay. All right.
Albert Okwuegbunam?
Close.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'm not trying to again.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
But Tad, during New Orleans' sort of reign as being one of the top offenses during Sean Payton's tenure there, they had an athletic tight end that sort of broke out that a lot of people were just like, where did this guy come from? A former basketball player from the Miami Hurricanes. His name is Jimmy Graham. And you look at Jimmy Graham and his height and his build. He comes in at 6'7", 258. Well, Albert Okwuegbunam comes in at 258 as well. He's only just 2 inches shorter, but he ran a faster 40 time than Jimmy Graham when he ran his 40 there by a clear 0.9 seconds too. Like it was pretty fast. So you look at what just Jimmy Graham brought to that offense. Like I said, that whole mismatch ability that I was sort of talking about earlier, right? Where it's like you line him up as a tight end, but he could ultimately just beat you down the field, take advantage of both the slower safeties as well as those coverage linebackers that modern day linebacker. Albert Okwuegbunam can sort of send them in his dust because he has that speed ability. Unfortunately, last year, I don't think it was just as good a fit in the offense with whatever Nathaniel Hackett was doing. Like, there's a lot of things that Nathaniel Hackett was doing that a lot of people didn't like. So
learn how to call a timeout, man.
I know.
Come on,
I know.
Jesus.
So we did see a sort of rise.
We literally had to hire a timeout specialist. I've never heard of that in my life.
That was But because Albert Okwuegbunam was just not a good fit in that offense, whatever Hackett was doing there, we saw the rise of rookie Greg Dulcich with a lot of
you could say he was hacking it.
Hacking it in a bad way. Like, I mean, that's the biggest thing. But like I said, I think think what he brings is, like I said, that speed mismatch. He's a good hands catcher. He sort of is a little bit of a flashier player. I think he's going to pair really nicely with a Jerry Jeudy. He's going to pair really nicely with a Courtland Sutton. Another guy that I really like as well, Tim Patrick. He was hurt last year, but I think he's going to benefit.
He's a wild card too. I don't know how he's going to do. He's the wild card here.
I see him being very much like this, that third option. Like I said, I've talked about this before, where it's like Devin Henderson, Lance Moore, Kenny Stills, Traquan Smith. He's going to be kind of that guy, where it's just like he's going to do a lot of good things, but he may not be as reliable in fantasy.
As
but
consistent,
I do like exactly. But I do like him as a good fit in this offense. But just going back to Albert O. Like I said, I think he's going to be able to stretch the field. Like I said, he's going to be a mismatch. He's going to be able to run some of those quarter routes. They're going to develop his route running a little bit. And I've actually read up Tad, but it's just like he's been one of the stars during their OTAs and their mini camps or whatever that they've had recently. Like him and Tim Patrick actually have both been shining on offense. So I think Sean Payton likes to make use of all his guys in his offense. I very much like Tim Patrick to flourish, but 100%. Albert O is going to take that sort of Jimmy Graham role in this offense, and he's absolutely going to break out this year finally.
So you're missing a name because spoiler alert to our listeners. I knew he was going to go with this earlier. I thought you were going to bring this guy up to argue against it. Are you not worried about Dulcich?
I did bring up Dulcich. Like I said, he did flourish last year, but I think just the explosive element that this offense has, that's what Albert O brings. Dulcich is still going to be a contributing factor, but he's just not that. Like, he's a more consistent, move the chains down the field. He may vulture some touchdowns away from Albert O, but like I said, when you're lulling the defense to sleep with these short dink and dunks, and you're obviously bringing the safeties in, this is when you send Albert O on a deep route, and he's going to be wide open, very much like I said, what we saw from Jimmy Graham in the past. So it's like, that's why I'm sort of higher up on Albert O compared to Greg Dulcich.
Man, this may be like a fool me once, fool me twice situation, but like after Noah, especially because it's the same team, but after Noah Fant, I feel like exactly because your whole argument is he's more athletic, which is fair. Yes. He absolutely is more athletic, but I feel like, again, what I've said on the past podcast episodes with Noah Fant, where we're like, he'll be good. It's just because he's like big and athletic is like, man, maybe Albert O will work out, but at this point, I'm kind of losing faith.
It is a little risky. He could fall into that same trap of like your Eric Ebrons, your Brandon Pettigrews. I mean, like you said, with
Brandon Pettigrew. Holy shit, that's a throwback.
So I mean, he could
Jordan Cameron.
Jordan Cameron, there's a good name too. Yeah. He had like, I think one season, where he was successful. Then after that, nothing. So he could fall into sort of that bucket for sure. But just like, I think just with Sean Payton, I think he may finally untap that potential that we're sort of been waiting for. I know he's only had like a short career. I think this is his third season now that he's entering, right? So just
correct,
like,
but I think he and Drew Lock were the same year.
Yeah. So I think just him just not being effective last year, that's all Nathaniel Hackett. But if he's not effective this year under Sean Payton, then 100% you can label the bust label on him and just completely roll with Greg Dulcich for certain there. But yeah, I do like Albert O to finally break out this year and be an effective piece of this offense under Sean Payton. And yeah, that will sort of close our. Unless you got any final points here, you got some final points here.
I just have to ask this: Broncos, do they make the playoffs? Yes or no?
Oh, that's a good one. I think they're going to be on the doorstep. They're going to be one of those teams that's like, even down the stretch, they're going to be in contention. But I think when it comes to like the final 2 weeks, they'll need a lot of help because unfortunately they'll suffer some beginning season losses as they're sort of adjusting to the new system and, new coaching staff and all that stuff. So that's what's ultimately going to bite them. So I think they're going to be close, but they'll miss it by just like, a game, I think probably.
Remember, bookmark this moment right now. The AFC West is going to have 3 playoff teams.
Wow. Okay.
The Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers. I was so tempted to go for the joke there and say the Raiders, but all 3 of those teams, are going to make the playoffs. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
All right. But honestly, that wouldn't shock me either. Because, I mean, there's a lot of talent across all 3 of those teams, obviously. So it's like, yeah, it wouldn't completely shock me if they do end up clinching a playoff spot. But like I said, I think just this year, as they make the adjustments, I think they'll fall just a little bit short this year and not make it. But next year, very much, as long as everything goes the way that they plan to, they'll very much be a contender next year.
They're going to be that annoying team that on like Sunday Night Football is like the in the hunt graphic. It's like the Broncos always like there. You're just like, God damn it.
Consistently, they'll be in that graphic for sure. Just hoping, obviously.
Kicking my Colts out.
Yeah.
There can only be one horse team.
But yeah, like we talked about, this is the beginning of our new head coaching series, but this is the end of today's episode. Obviously, a lot of people know about Sean Payton already, but I think we brought some extra wrinkles into this episode that maybe you didn't know about. Obviously, his coaching history and where he played. Like, I had no idea.
I still can't believe Vinny Testaverde was a Cowboy. I never knew that.
You're learning a lot of extra things there. Not even Sean Payton related, really, I guess, right? But yeah, we're going to continue this series going on. We may not do it consecutively, but 100% every week we'll drop a new head coaching episode. We got 4 episodes left. The best way to find out about when those episodes are dropping, as well as all our other episodes and which coaches we're covering up next, you see a ticker down below. A little bit late this time, but yeah, you got our names there. It's going to come around just again.
Can't win them all the time.
Here. It's a loop, those tiny loops that you see in the kids' amusement park where they just go in like a 10-yard circle. This is exactly what the ticker is. It's going to come back really fast there. So you got us on Twitter, be it @OnTheSide23. You got Tad at TadTheSide94. You got the show handle at The Decide Guys. Of course, on Instagram at The Decide Guys as well. Wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you're subscribing there, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You listen right on the LEFB Network website as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. But guys, make sure you're also supporting our network here that has given us the opportunity to give this podcast to you. That is LEFB Network. Make sure you're subscribing to their YouTube channel and their social media handles and their podcast as well, giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the NFL level and the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level. So, I mean, lots of great content that's coming from LAFB Network. But guys, I mean, if you're following us, if you're interacting with us, listening, watching, I mean, just anything and everything in between, guys, we really can't thank you enough.
And I was just short of forcing Murray to do this, but if you would like such things like our record predictions for certain teams, our, schedule predictions. Hey, how are the Bears going to do this year? I think I'm a little higher on the Bears than Murray is this year. But, things like that. I'm willing to do that on social media. So hit us up as a, look, this is better timing right here. Hit us up on those handles right below. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Our numbers have been great recently, so we clearly have a great, great base behind us. We cannot thank you enough. Keep supporting us, and we'll keep giving you great content. Thank you so much. And as always, please stay safe, everyone.